We are about a week away from marking 1 year since Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. And we've got some new video this morning of Vice President Kamala Harris arriving in Munich, Germany for a security conference. The vice president will address the conference on Saturday. She is expected to brace the Western alliance for a lengthy and costly conflict, but also reassure both Ukraine and its allies of continued U.S. support. This comes as uncertainty lingers surrounding House GOP support for continued defense and humanitarian aid for Ukraine. And that support appears to be slipping among everyday Americans as well. This is a new poll conducted by the Associated Press and Nork Center for Public Affairs Research. Just 48% of Americans support sending weapons to Ukraine. This is a pretty big drop compared to May of 2022, when 60% of Americans supported sending weapons. And all of this happening as Ukraine continues to burn through ammunition faster than it can be supplied. Joining us this morning, Paul Rieckhoff on all things Ukraine. He's a veteran. He's a national security and political analyst. He's also the host of the Independent Americans podcast. Hey, good to see you as always. Why do you think support is dwindling? How do you respond to that?
Marnie, I think people get tired of war. I think that's an inevitable part of most of this in the modern era. I mean, we saw it with Iraq, we saw it with Afghanistan, and I think now we're seeing it with Ukraine. It's not the hot issue that it once was. I think many Americans don't feel the urgency. It's not dominating their headlines. Credit to you and to your colleague, Chris Cuomo, for keeping the focus here. But a lot of folks have already moved on to other things. And when something like a school shooting happens back in America, people can lose that focus on what's happening thousands of miles away. I also think it has to do with the popularity of President Biden. This is pretty divided along partisan lines, and people don't have a lot of confidence in his ability to address this situation, especially among Republicans. It's like 4x higher among Republicans. So there's also a lot of political division around this issue. I think that's unfortunate. National security issues hopefully should move among that. But I think the president is going to have to make his case, and that's part of why the vice president's in Germany now, to bring that attention and to try to galvanize more support.
And I think one way, Paul, to make people care is to show the personal side of war and the people who are heading into battle. And you brought up Chris. He was in Ukraine earlier this week. And I want to play for you and for our audience at home an interaction he had with two 17-year-olds who are training and heading to the front lines. Let's listen to that.
What does it mean to you, what you're learning how to do, and then actually having to go do it? Being out on the battlefield, you know better than kids your age what the reality is.
Have you witnessed the scariest part of our country, like Bucha, Kharkiv, Izium? Yeah?
Yeah.
So definitely I'm ready for that, but it's scary.
What do you tell yourself to make it okay that these people will try to kill you, and you may have to try to kill them to save your life and your country?
I didn't choose the aggression against anybody else, so that's not the problem for me. And if we wouldn't defend our country, nobody else would do.
I don't know about you, Paul, but this got me. Every time I watch it, this kid is saying, this is our fight. This is about my future. I'm not expecting anyone else to fight for us. But he's 17 years old, wise beyond his years, brave, but also really scared. How does this land with you as a veteran to watch this kid ready to go into battle?
You know, I think that kid makes a much more powerful case than Zelensky, than Kamala Harris, than Joe Biden, than anyone else can make. And I think it's a part of this story that's been underreported. And credit to Chris for elevating those stories. This is a fight for freedom. This is a fight to protect their homeland. This is a fight to protect women and children. And children are in the fight. Old people are in the fight. This is the fight of their time. It's the fight of our time. And I think we haven't heard enough from the Ukrainian people, especially the young people who are really leading this fight. This is Ukraine's greatest generation. We talk a lot about the American greatest generation in World War II that stood up to tyranny and fought against oppression. That's what this generation is for Ukraine. I think there's another part of the story, too, that's not being communicated. We can defeat Russia. Russia has lost more than half their tanks, 200,000 casualties. They're sending waves of convicts now. So this is bigger than just about defending Ukraine. This is about the opportunity for the West to totally defeat the Russian military, which could have long-term impacts for our national security. When it's framed that way, I think it's much more persuasive, and I think the Americans will understand we're a freedom-loving people, we're an independent people, but that case, frankly, isn't being made well enough.
And how can you not want to support those two kids as they train to go into war, a bloody war?
Yeah.
Always good to see you. National security political analyst Paul Rieckhoff, my best to you. See you next week.
Thanks, Marnie.